take a look at how the platform, looks at this data. So we're going to go ahead and create a report. And then on that survey that says collecting, right next to 16 responses, there's going to be a report plus report button there. And you're just going to click on that. And then here, where it's going to pop up, there's going to be 3 different types of reports that you can build out. The most common one is going to be the manager and the custom report. So for managers, that only allows people to see like their direct reports or indirectly. And then a custom report, also known as like an HR report, doesn't really have that hierarchy. So you're allowed to kind of, see reports across your organization. And then the last one is going to be personal reports. They're not commonly used, but if you ever want to compare like one individual to, let's say, like a group of people in your organization or location, you can do that. But what we're going to focus on today is going to be creating a manager report. So go ahead and click on that. All right, so here is the manager report. So you can retitle it at the top if you'd like, up there where it says manager report, right under the teal ribbon there. And then what we're going to focus on is going to be the set general report configurations. So you can run different streams of this report. So for example, this is like the pulse report. So you can say, oh, I only want to look at the last 2 times that we ran this report. So that's kind of what streams mean. Or you can say that I want to look at all streams, like anytime you've collected this type of report. Since it's a pulse, you might do it once every quarter, or maybe, in the half of the year, entirely up to you. And then below is going to be directory version. So we are able to slice and dice the data. So if you click on that change there, right under that directory version there, click on change. This is where you have the option to like present employee information upon the last survey response, or let's say the initial one. This might come into play, for example, if you are doing some sort of like manager feedback survey, and maybe in the time that you had the survey, people's managers have changed. So if you do in the last survey response, it would reflect their new manager, but technically, maybe when they did the survey response or the survey, that was feedback for the older manager. So that's just something to consider as you're pulling your data. So if it doesn't matter, you can just do the directory version upon the last survey response. And then we're going to scroll down. And then where I want to focus on here is going to be the privacy and survey confidentiality. So if you recall in our last session, in the account session, basically this says that, for example, a manager cannot view this report unless 4 people on their team has taken the survey. And then this way they don't try to figure out who has responded to what on the survey. So it's more for privacy and kind of confidentiality on that front. All right, and then if you scroll down, let's go to where it says like open-ended responses. By default, viewers can read exact text for each response is turned off. So let's go ahead and turn that on. So for example, when we get into open-ended responses, kind of very similar to that confidentiality one, there has to be at least 4 survey participants under their team in order for them to read text responses, and they'll be like the actual comments that employees have written in. And then the last thing on this page I want to focus on is going to be the metrics below. So right now we only have 2, but you may have like multiple ones. Best practices, we say you should have no more than 4. Otherwise, it's kind of analysis paralysis. There's just too many things to take in consideration. So we have 2, that's good to go. And then next, we're going to pick out some filter options. So how do you want to see the data? we always recommend to do like anything that has band because it gives you a kind of range. So for example, if you go into that search and just type in band, so maybe you might want to do age band. That's might be something that we want to check off. And then maybe you want to do current tenure band. And then let's erase the band. And then maybe we want to do type in location, maybe. Maybe we want to do location description, because if you do location, that's the code. And then let's say that we want to do like org level. Just type in org in that search. And then you'll kind of see what I'm talking about when I mention these things, because these are all things that you can use to slice the data. So yeah, if you want to just see org level 2, that's good. And then we can also use that survey question that we created, like who is your favorite Disney princess? We can use that as a criteria to look at the report. So let's check that off. All right, so any questions about this page so far?
Nope.
Okay, so let's go ahead and click on next customize summary page. I won't go into this too much because it's more for like when you see it, you'll understand why this is there. So we'll come back to this page. Let's go ahead and click on next. And we're gonna go ahead and create some heat maps. So go ahead and click on add a heat map. And then we wanna say display all metrics. So just check off that box. And then let's say we wanna see the breakdown between current tenure band. If you select it there, yep. And right on the side, we're going to say display all. And then let's go ahead and rename this heat map to current tenure band. Click on save, and then you have to click another save. And then let's just go ahead and add another heat map. And then again, just check off that box, display all metrics. And then kind of click on what you want to see in this heat map, age band, location description, or org level, whichever. And again, we'll do display all. And then we want to rename that heat map. And then that's good to go. Let's click on customize text insights. So these are basically anything that you don't want the report to pull up. So for example, when someone says, the name of your company, 98 Ventures, that word doesn't really hold any value to it. So we should not have it be a focus word. We want to look at things that say opportunities or benefits. Maybe those are words that we would want to focus on, and we would want to ignore words like this or that because they don't really give us any insight. So you may want to add it into your hidden terms, like your company name, maybe. Oh, so you want to add to that list. So you just removed it, which is totally fine. But if you wanted to add something, you just type in where it says new hidden term. So you can either do like company, like the one that you removed, or your company name, and then it adds to the list. And it's right there. But you can always come back here if you find your report like, why is this word coming up? I don't really want to see this. I want to focus on other things. You can do so. But if not, we can go ahead and scroll up. And then we want to make sure this is turned on as well at the top. And then let's go ahead and click on next. All right, and then I normally would check off both boxes, view entire team as well as view direct team. And then on the display questions by, I would recommend checking off the box metrics. And then let's go ahead and create the report. Okay, got it. And then say okay. So let's go ahead and click on add viewers. So this gives you a list of which managers are eligible to see this report. So if you recall, our threshold was 4. So at least 4 team members need to complete this survey in order for a manager to see this report. What's really great is that you can Like for example, if you go to Scott Moore, if you click on the eyeball, you can view the report as him. So you can kind of see what he's viewing. So go ahead and click on it. And then this is what, and you say, I'll do that later. And then you can kind of see here what he's going to see in the report. So for example, for the participation for the survey, 16 out of 20 that report to him have filled out this survey. 16 people represent 1.2 of the team. And that's something that we can remove from the report, but that's some data that shows up. And then below here, we have metrics, right? So from a scale, I believe 1 to 6, engagement and energy are scored very high. So for example, you have a 5.2 and then a 5. They normally kind of set this as average. So just kind of depending on how people answered. So go ahead and click on engagement. What's really great is that everything in here is clickable. So for example, if you scroll up, so the reason why we added those metrics is because we want to see how these groups are scoring in these metrics. So for example, in strengths, it looks like millennials are scoring higher engagement. And then also looks like HR ops are also scoring higher than all the other groups that we added. You can also look at opportunities as well. And you can see here, so 21 to 30-year-olds are kind of scoring lower engagement. And then human resources, that group is also scoring lower. So it kind of gives you some insight in terms of, what kind of groups that you would want to focus on. Okay, so it looks like engagement is lower for these people in this age band. What can you do? And then that's kind of where you take that next step. So I thought that was really cool. You can always add additional metadata, and keep in mind you want to do identifiable surveys because it does allow you to view your report in certain ways and certain criterias. And this trends and comparison, if he had a smaller group, it would compare to the rest of the people who have answered the survey. So they can kind of compare that way. And if you scroll down, you can see here, the engagement is 5.2. If you scroll up just a little bit, right here where it says that bar. So basically the black dot is going to be the average, and then the dark gray is basically standard deviation. So it looks like there's a range. So the smaller it is, that means everyone's kind of on the same page. The wider is, maybe it's more spread out. So you can compare those results to other organizations or groups within your company. And then here, if you go scroll down, how does engagement break down by managers? You can just go ahead and click on those tiles. So go ahead and click on Stephen. So under him, he may have other indirect reports or other manager groups, so they can see insight. For example, Scott's team has average of 5, but then Leslie looks like she has an average of 5.3, and you can click on those tiles. Go ahead and keep clicking until you can't go no more. So it's like we only have data from Alana, and it looks like maybe, for example, David and Allison, maybe those teams, they don't have enough participation for us to show that score. But it's just really cool that you can, compare to other teams. And if you scroll down more, yeah, so Jesse, it just goes all the way through. All right, and then if you scroll down again, so this is where we added, what we wanted to measure by. So for example, for engagement, it looks like millennials are scoring higher than people who are 21 to 30. And then you can also click on the subsequent tabs, like current 10-year band. So it looks like people who have been here for 1 to 3 years have a higher engagement score than people who have been here a year or less. Go to the next tab. So it looks like we didn't have any other locations to compare to. So that's just the average score for that. And then org level, we can see, oh, it looks like kind of like what the insights mentioned, HR ops scores higher than the human resources team. All right, so any questions about this metrics page here?
I don't think so, but this is really neat to see how we compare.
Yeah, also at the top where it says like that 5.2 in the green, there's like a hyperlink says what does engagement mean and how is it measured? You can click on that. So it lets you know, so you can, edit the top, a set of attitudes and feelings. That's like a description that you can edit, but it lets you know which questions that we associated with this engagement metric. I'm often immersed in my work. I devote a lot of energy to my work. So those are all the rating questions that got associated with this metric, and that's kind of how we got that average. And that's how it also says calculation of engagement, average score is calculated.
And Connie, for this one, I don't know if we did it where the answers were anonymous, but if we run a survey where it's not anonymous, is there a way to click on like a specific answer and see the people that answered that way?
Yeah, you can go into it if you don't have, if it's an identifiable survey, yes.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and close out of that, and then we can close out of this page as well. And it kind of lets you see it by each metric. Each metric has your own page where you can just kind of dive deep in it. Let's go into heat maps right next to summaries, right under Scott Moore's team on the top corner. So these are the heat maps that we created. It lets you kind of know in a visual sense in terms of how people are scoring. There's not too much data in here, but it lets you know through an arrow, there's a guide on the side, lowest score versus highest score. And for right now, it looks like everything is good. But if you click on engagement for, let's say, the age band for 21 to 30-year-olds, you can click on it or hover over it. And it lets you know what the average score was for each question that's associated with the engagement metric. So for example, this last question here, so the average score is 3.4 when they answer the question, I feel a consistent level of energy throughout the day. So maybe, this could be the action planning. Maybe we need to do some sort of activity at like 2 p.m. Maybe we need to have like a coffee break time. Maybe that could help with energy, since it looks like this group in particular is struggling with it. So everything is interactive. So again, you can hover over things. You can see the average of how people scored. So it looks like people in this age group really devote energy to it. They have a 5.9 out of 6, which is significantly high. So we kind of wonder what these people are doing, right? You can also, so this is the default view, and then there's also a highlight statistical significance right under heat maps. And it just highlights what looks off or comparative to the groups. So it gives you visibility to that. All right, and then let's go into text insights, the next tab. And then this kind of lets you know, so keep in mind you have a score from -100 to 100. And I think sometimes for example, this one didn't have enough data. Maybe people skipped this question. But if you go into this 12 comments, well, you can go ahead and click on it where it says the score 33. That second question there where it says 12 comments, click on it so you can see. So basically the system is reading, depending on the words you're using. So for example, it's 33% are promoting, 17% is distracting, and then 50% is neutral, which means it kind of gives it a 0. So you can look at the actual comments here. So keep in mind of the threshold, we said there has to be at least 4 survey participants in order for us to look at these comments. And like I said, everything is clickable. So for example, if you want to look at the 33% that's promoting, you can click on it with the smiley face. Yep. And so it looks like these ones were promoting, and you can look at those particular comments. And then you can exit out of, you can click out that promoting right there. You can say, I want to look at things that are detracting. So it looks like people got some things to say in this survey. And then you can also look at neutral. So something that could be neutral is like, I love this job, but I hate to, go to meetings. That's kind of like a neutral statement. You have something that's positive and negative, and they kind of cancel each other out. Right, so no comment, NA, those are, we can't really determine whether it's like detracting or, promoting. All right, so that's text insights. And you see here the top themes, right? So you can like click on that top theme. So it looks like people are really interested in career growth opportunities. And it's like kind of what people have talked about in the comments. So I think it's a really great tool because, maybe you can analyze like 20 survey responses, but let's say if you're doing it for a whole company, it can be very overwhelming. And it's nice that the system has an AI that kind of reads between the lines for you. And then we'll get into this deeper as we dive into text analytics. All right, so let's close out that. And then let's go to the last page, which is details. So again, we can slice and dice information here. So what's really great is that let's go ahead and click on that compare button right here. It's the blue button right underneath. And you can say, I want to compare this. So we have Scott's team, and maybe we want to compare to people who answer the question, who is your favorite Disney princess? Let's just say that. You can click on that one. And then I'm just going to say people who said Belle was their favorite Disney princess. And then let's go ahead and apply it. So he can see here, you can compare, right? So, all right, people who said Belle was their favorite Disney princess, let's compare it to Scott's team. Obviously, you have better examples for that, but you can compare it to like other locations, other departments versus everybody, which is the all results here. We have Scott's direct team. There's not enough data in there, meaning that he didn't get 4 responses in this survey, so there's not a really way for us to compare it.
Can we choose a different department or a different manager just because he's like the CEO, so that's why nothing's coming up because everyone reports under him somehow.
Yeah, so you can click on that compare button again. And I think it kind of just depends. I don't think we added it here.
Can we do it by like department?
Yeah, go ahead, check off that box. And so it's going to compare everybody that's in there. So 13 people. So it's going to do an aggregate. So you can see here, it's HR ops as one column, human resources another column, and then there's like an aggregate column with both of them there. So you can see how people answered each question and how they scored. Keep in mind, this is like a manager report. So it might be limited, but if you had an HR report, you'll be able to do more comparisons with like other managers and direct teams, but this is a manager report. Any questions on this page here? Yeah, lets you know how people answered those questions there too. So if you go to like survey pages, you can see data. So basically it's the same thing, just being broken down in different ways. So this is by the pages that we said there's one page for engagement pulse and there's one page for other. That's their score. Maybe might be something that you're not going to use as often, but the most important one is probably like metrics. If you click on that one on the side, right under this gray column here. So you may want to see for other departments or other teams, like how they score in this certain metric. And you can always hover over them again too. And that shows you the questions that were answered, like the average, I think. So if you hover over the score, should show you, yeah, what that aggregate is. And you can always like edit the reports too. If you check off that box, edit reports on the top. Like if you see it and you're like, oh, I don't think he wants to see that. Like for example, if we go back to the customized summary section. So for example, completion rate, if you check that box down, we don't need to include the organization representation size. That doesn't really do anything. Maybe for this report, and then you can just like click on save, and then you can see that that no longer is there. So you want to look at it. So if you click on 0 viewers, that's where you can see it as like Scott right there. You can like click on an eyeball. Anyone? Yeah. You can see now, for example, like that representative of the whole entire company is gone. So you can make changes to reports if you like, and it can be like an ongoing thing as you're collecting data. You don't have to like stop collecting responses in order to run a report, which is really nice. And then you also have the ability to create a PDF report here on the corner. So if somebody doesn't want to have a link here, you just if you click on these drop downs like metrics and whatnot, you can select like what they should see, energy and engagement, and then you can like create the PDF. But my recommendation is always to have them go to this report because it's so interactive. I get sometimes people don't have time to click on it, but I feel like it really helps, just clicking on things and kind of understanding how things are being calculated. But you do have an option to create a PDF. And then when you're ready, if you click on 0 viewers, at the top there, yep. If you're ready, so for example, if you want to send Amanda her report just as like a test, you can check off that box. And then you also have the ability to customize the invitation right next to that tab called Invite Viewers. And then maybe you want to let them know that, hey, FYI, this is not spam. This is your report. So you can customize that email that goes out. If you save it, and then you want to make sure you go back to invite viewers and actually invite that person. Yep. And then look at invitation. All right, any questions so far?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead back to the dashboard. You can click on that UKG logo at the top. And then next we're gonna get into text analytics. So before we do that, we want to make sure that we extract the open-ended responses. So you're gonna click on that little gear for this employee pulse survey here on the end. Yep. And then we want to say export survey responses. And then you can be selective in terms of what streams are, but we just go ahead, we're going to go ahead and collect all of it. So go ahead and continue. All right, so basically we are extracting the open-ended responses out of it. And here's where you can say you want to include people who have terminated or only people who are current directory. So I would recommend always selecting the top because people who are no longer here may have some insights. And then you can capture certain populations if you like. So that's kind of what that filter is for. And then let's go ahead and click on next. And then here's kind of like how we want to, again, how do we want to slice and dice the data? So maybe we can go with the ones that we went before, maybe like age band here that you see at the top. And then maybe current tenure band. I would use band just because it gives you like a range, like, 0 to 2 years or 0 to 4 years. And then anything else. I think there's one for like divorce, it's just fun things to look at, but I would recommend using bands or like nothing that's like identifiable, maybe not location, but maybe we can do org level 2 again. So if that's all you want to do, that's totally fine. Let's go ahead and click on next. For NPL, I just would recommend putting none. The data is going to show us the themes anyways, and then go ahead and click on next. And we want to make sure this is a CSV format, which is it is, and then let's export it. And then it's going to tell you to download it on your desktop. It says it emails you, but yeah, there it is. Okay, so now that we've exported the responses, now we're going to import it into the platform. So we're going to go to the next tab over called Text Analytics. And then you can see here, I've uploaded some test data, but let's go ahead and click on New Stream. And then you're going to import your CSV file. So what's really great about text analytics is that you don't have to necessarily only do a survey with an employee voice and then have the system analyze it. So you mentioned that you had SurveyMonkey and Google Forms. You can extract that data and have the platform analyze it too. So let's just say this is like a test stream. So that's how we'll title it. And then in terms of themes, basically you're letting the system know how you would want to read the file. So for example, employee surveys, that would be relevant, but let's say that you're doing a survey regards to performance reviews, that's something that you might check off, and then there's other. All right, I think employee surveys is good, so let's go ahead and click on next. And then here is where you want to make sure that the system is selecting open-ended responses. So rating questions sometimes show up here. Obviously, that's not something that we're going to analyze. We only want to do open-ended ones. So maybe, for example, we'll uncheck stream. So that's not really an open-ended question. Let's go ahead and click on next. And then here, I always recommend to just uncheck whatever is checked off here. You just click on that green, and that's because it's not really truly an NPS. We want to measure EPS instead. All right, let's go ahead and click on next. Here you don't have to do anything for that. Since we only have one stream anyways, go ahead and click on next. And then here's where we can set filters. So this is how we want to slice and dice the data. So we want to check off the metadata that we selected, like age band. You just want to click on it and it kind of shows up in green. Yep. And then current tenure band. And then org level. So you check that off. And then you can also rename it in the pencil. So if that's department and that's what reads better, we can go ahead and do that. And then let's scroll down and see if there's anything else that we want to utilize. We may want to use that Disney question if it comes up. I don't think that's the one. Scroll down. there should be one that we did. There you go. You want to check off that one. And then let's go ahead and click on next. I think you have to click on next again. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and click on build stream. And then this is just kind of a normal error that comes up. I normally just say omit the lines. All right, and then go ahead and click on build stream again. I think it's because it's a message there. There you go. So this is going to fill that out. It does take a little bit of time. Any questions so far?
So do we need to export the results and go through this process each time, or are you just showing us this on how to input surveys from another system?
You have to do this each time, and just a little bit of background. So initially when this product was created, it just was the text analytics piece. And then we built, and then we tacked on surveys. So this is for like all surveys, even if you do that within employee voice.
Okay, so we need to do this process to get to, I guess what we're about to see. So
Yes,
I'll stop.
Oh yeah, no worries. So let's go ahead and build out that stream. Let's say yes, do it. And then we're going to rename this analytics report here. We want to do like demo analytics report. Just so we can see what it looks like. Yep. And then let's go ahead and create it. So that's how you kind of do it within the platform. I went ahead and loaded like a test file just so you can kind of see more. I feel like there's not too many things going on, so it's only 21 responses. So let's go back to the UKG logo at the top. We're going to look at another text analytics report. So go to text analytics. And then right next to it should say reports, 3 reports right next to data streams. And then go ahead and click on test data TA report. That's one I created. So the report that we just did is more focused on like averages, you know, on a scale to 1 to 6, do you agree or disagree? It gives you insights to that. And this one specifically is mostly for open-ended questions. So for example, here we have like 2,000 messages. Obviously that could be very difficult to analyze and read. And this is kind of the whole point of text analytics. So in this overview here, you can see at what times people participate in the survey. Normally you see a big spike when the survey first comes out, and then maybe you might see it trickle down afterwards. That's kind of what this graph means. And then if you scroll down below, you can see the emotional promoter score, keeping in mind it's from -100 to 100. So it looks like there's a promoter score of -5. And then the system also tries to read, you know, the emotion behind the open-ended responses. And on the side, we see some workplace themes. So it looks like a lot of people are talking about management, the company brand, as well as compensation and benefits. And then you can also click on top terms. And then here, it looks like a lot of people are using the word need, or meaningful, or organization and structure. So you can, gives you insight to that. And then on the sides here, let's go ahead and click on themes in this gray bar, is where you can see the data being organized in a certain way. So if you want to look at themes, right, everything here is clickable. So for example, let's take a look at this first theme of management. It has a promoter score of 0, but I can click on this green here. I want to see who's been promoting. And what's really great is if you click on see details, this is how you can see how they, excuse me, answered questions. So you can say, oh, no wonder they maybe answered promoting. They're satisfied with the company here. They've, answered as they rated it as a 6, 1 out of 6. So it gives you like visibility there. You see top terms amongst people who are promoting as well. We scroll up. So you can see like top terms at the top. So out of these, promoting messages, what were commonly things, common words that were being said? And yeah, everything is drilled down. So you said top terms for development. You can go back to 41 messages that were saying that at the top. Just before, but that's okay. All of this is really, you get to filter down and get into the demographics if you'd like. It's kind of what the point of the text analytics piece is. All right, so if we're good with this, we can go over to the next section here. You just exit out. You can go to like terms. It shows you, when people mention this term, it got a certain response. So it looks like manager was said in 1,000 of these responses and it has a -5. Team was said and it had a more better score, 27. Development was a 1, benefits 44. So there's a lot of visibility as opposed to you as HR just trying to read and make up of these things. There's just, here's where you have a report that you can take a look at it. Let's go ahead and take a look at like EPS. If we go down, again, this is all the same data, just sliced in different ways. Why do we have detractors out of all the messages, detractors versus promoters? And it looks like, for example, we had gender here. You can click on that too. If that was like a metadata that we selected, right? So it looks like females are, have a higher detractor score than male. There's more responses than them. And then here is where we can add on filters. So you can click, so you notice that there's like an icon showing. So we can click on female. And then now everything on the side here where it says themes and terms, you can click on those. Like for example, go to themes. This is the themes for people who are female. So you can see at the top there where it says search gender female. And then you can just go in here and really figure out, okay, so I want to see a group of females, but maybe I also want to add a layer. I want to see what women are saying about management. You can add another filter option here at the top too. What are the themes here? So now you have these 2 filters working. And then you can see what the outcome is. So maybe you want to see terms or something. Maybe that's something that we want to see for females who have the theme of management in their comments. You can go on the side here and click anything of the gray options. Yeah, emotions. People who are satisfied, what are they saying about management or anything along those lines? Why are people disappointed? Again, everything is clickable. You can click on anything in here and see those open-ended responses. And if you wanted to remove those filters, you can go ahead and click on the X at the top of the page. So it's just people who said management themes. And then you can remove that. And then it's just everybody. And then you can also do it. There's like another filter option. If you don't want to click around, there's also a filter icon right next to that date that says like March 2017. So that's where you can also quickly add filters as well. So that's text analytics. And then if you don't want people to see like the details, you can click on that really small gear right next to the name test data TA report. And then this is where you can add viewers to see it in other settings here. That's where you can say hide details. So if you recall, those are the ones where you can see what they answered. And then also in hidden terms, kind of like the reports, if you click on hidden terms, for example, we saw the word need. I don't think need gives you any like information on what the next step is. There's not really like a word that you can take action upon. So you can also hide terms from this report as well. All right, so any questions about text analytics?
What is considered a term?
Yeah, so for example, if we exit out of here, so for example, promotions, right? Something that's like, I feel like a term that can be used. It looks like so many people are talking to promotions. Maybe that means that we should, you know, make some action plans for that. But something like org, that doesn't really tell you something. Like in these top terms here, like org doesn't really tell you anything about, you know, how they're feeling or what they're focused on. So that might be terms that you would want to hide from the report. So it would take away from this area here, and it would include more terms that, you know, make sense, like development opportunities or company culture. Those are pretty powerful terms that you would maybe want to see responses, you know, related to that.
So that it's pretty much just any word, and the system knows that it or considers it a term.
Yeah, like basically if it pops up, so it's reading two things, right? So it's reading, the AI is reading the response, seeing like what kind of theme, workplace theme is coming up. And it's also just looking at the actual responses and actually just like calculating and counting the word since it keeps coming up.